So what I want to talk about today is the vaccinations and the herd immunity. So this is a Korean news, and it's about anarchy. They say if you use a fever reducer to lower your fever, your body won't learn how to win against the disease. And that's what anarchy claims, and it gathered a number of parents a few years ago, and naturally raising the kids. And they also argued that vaccination is a natural way of coming over the diseases, and yet they are not the only people who think like that. Due to fear of vaccinations or some personal beliefs, many people are starting to refuse the vaccinations, and it can cause a lot of problems. So why is this happening, and what consequences would it bring? Vaccine is kind of a weakened germs that makes your body to create an antibody themselves against it. Humankind has defeated many diseases through vaccinations, including some fatal ones like measles, which killed 2.6 million people in 1980. And although it is true that there are some failures in vaccines, the chances so low, it is almost no risk compared to the terrifying diseases itself. So this is the statistics of the diseases compared using vaccines or not. So it seems quite clear that getting yourself vaccinated is the best way to protect yourself from the diseases, regarding the slightest flaw of the side effects. So there are some misunderstandings about the vaccines that promotes groundless fears about it. So the first one is that it causes autism spectrum to children, and after the thesis was proposed, the vaccination rate dropped rapidly. However, the thesis asserted that there is no certain correlation between the vaccination and the autism. In fact, the thesis turned out to be manipulated a few years later, and it's now retracted from the corresponding journal of it. And finally, in 2015, the American Medical Association showed that the vaccination has nothing to do with the autistic children on a research on 95,000 children. And another one about the misunderstandings of vaccination is that they induce mercury, which is thimerosal in accurate terms. And the American Academy of Pediatrics started recommending not using the thimerosal in vaccines, as the amount of it exceeded the FDA standards. But thimerosal is different from the actual mercury we talked about, which is methyl mercury. And this is the toxic substance we know, and thimerosal is actually not a dangerous substance. So it is never pointed out to be dangerous, but the Academy of Pediatrics only recommended not using it because they wanted to consider the potential threat of it as to meet the FDA standards. And although it's not dangerous, it's not included in the vaccines we use nowadays, so there's nothing to worry about this non-toxic substance. Ever since the vaccination started, many people started to resist getting vaccinations, or maybe in their personal beliefs. In 1867, when English government started charging people who refuses to get vaccinated, many people started to protest against it. However, there is something more than the mere personal beliefs in vaccinations, the reason why individual vaccination is so important. In 1840, it was discovered that not all people in the group has to be vaccinated to completely stop the infectious disease. This is what is called herd immunity, and if certain proportion in a group get vaccinated, the disease would have hard time spreading itself, and it would eventually stop spreading, and it will also protect even the not vaccinated people. And herd immunity not only protects the not vaccinated people, but it also protects the people who are not able to defend themselves through vaccinations, asthma patients, for example, who can get flu vaccinations. So but the herd immunity is now facing a great danger, as sufficient proportion of vaccinated people is hardly guaranteed nowadays. Measles and pertussis, which is regarded as a completely retreated disease, is rapidly retrieving its fame of the past. Has retrieved for last 10 years. And for example, measles in California, 2014, has reached that of 1947. In December 2014, the measles started in Disneyland, California, wiped out the whole state because the state's herd immunity was badly held. Hence, the bill halting the kids not vaccinated to go to school, SB 277, was proposed. And soon after, religious communities and legal communities and a bunch of liberalists started to protest against the law, that it hinders their right to choose. And the bill had to go through lots of public debates and public hearings to get proposed finally. And so some people refuse to get vaccinated because they have personal beliefs or they state some right to choose, and some have misunderstandings or fear about the vaccinations. But if that kind of people start to increase, it will pose a huge threat to our public health. The case of California leads us to the question whether there is a moral responsibility in the refusal of vaccinations. It may seem like giving up their duty to protect the old and the weak, and as well as the responsibility to the public health. If the phenomenon continues and exceeds a certain point, the old, the young, and the weak, and also obviously the people who didn't get vaccinated would be the first victims of it. So the decisions about the vaccination we make it's more than just the personal beliefs. It's more something about consciousness and responsibility towards the public health. With the recognition of our responsibility to the public health and the understanding of the scientific facts, the decision must be made prudently. If the solution of preserving our public health starts to crack at some point, no one knows for sure what will happen next. So this is the end of the TED Talk. And for the discussion, I would firstly like to ask you if you have ever believed that vaccination is unnecessary or dangerous, because before I've known these kind of things, I also sometimes thought that vaccination was unnecessary. Does anyone have that kind of experience?